Hey everybody, welcome back to another WV Guns and Goats video. It's a beautiful fall day, maybe a little bit windy out here, so if there's any wind noise, I apologize for that. It's beyond my control. But we're out here to take a look at a digital optic from OneLeaf. This is their Commander NV400 Eagle 2 to 26 by 50, and this model has the laser rangefinder on it. Now, we've got it set up right here. I've got the box right here. I'm going to go over everything that comes with this optic in this video. We are going to show you all of the optics menu items and its different features, and then we're going to do some shooting with it. So that's what's in store for you in tonight's video. But first, go ahead and headbutt that subscribe button to join the herd here at WV Guns and Goats. Now, if you're thinking digital optics are something that's brand new, they've actually been around for about 20 years now. In fact, the first one I saw was by Elcan. I think they called it the Digi Hunter or the Digital Hunter. And then you had stuff like the ATN X-Sight series. And there was also the Tracking Point system, which was a ballistics computer, constantly laser range finding your target, and you'd lock it in and it wouldn't let you shoot until you got your crosshairs back on that locked in spot and you pulled the trigger then. But it actually was a really high-tech system, but it came with a huge price tag. It ran about $10,000. Now this scope is much more affordable. This has a price tag of around $500. We interrupt this video to bring you a coupon code. Use the code on the screen by November 19th, 2024 to save 10% on the NV400 scope. If you're watching this after that date, don't worry, you can still get 5% off this optic. Now, let's get back to the video. And let's go ahead and look at the features we have on the box here. We've got OneLeaf.ai, that is their website. And then we've got the name of the optic up top here, 4K recording, and a full color photo of the optic itself. There's a feature list on top of this box. I'm going to go ahead and read it off to you. It features day, starry, and night mode. Video recording in 4K 120, 60, 30 FPS, 2K 30 FPS, and 1080p at 30 FPS. Its night vision range is listed as 1,300 feet or 437 yards. It has a 13x digital zoom. It has an electronic compass. You can switch it between first focal plane and second focal plane. It has a one-shot zero system. It offers a picture-in-picture. The buttons on top of the optic are backlit so you can see them in low light or night conditions. It has a battery reversal alert, so you don't damage the optic. If you put the battery in upside down, it's going to let you know. It has 6 profiles that you can set up to use this on different firearms. It has 7 reticle options with 5 different colors, and the screen aspect is 16:9 or 4:3 switching. It also has an HDMI port, and you'll see that because we're going to use that in this video to show you all the options that this scope has, and it's rated IP67. It also includes a 64GB micro SD card. It includes an IR illuminator that's 850 nm. It takes 48 megabyte, 24 megabyte, 12 megabyte, 8 megabyte photos. It is 2 to 26 magnification. Its focus range is 16 feet to infinity. And external rangefinder right here is listed as 15 feet to 3,300 feet. So that's everything listed on the box here. Let's see what comes in the box with the optic. Here's a skunk. All right, so here is a possum. Here in front of me, I have all the accessories that came in the box, and I have some of them installed on the optic itself. First up, there is a battery adapter. It's a 65mm battery cap adapter. And then here is one of the eyepieces. I have the other one installed on the scope here. This is the longer one. I have the shorter one on the optic, and it's pretty cushiony there. Next up, we have a USB-C cable. This is for charging the optic. Next up, we have an HDMI output cable. This goes from micro HDMI to regular HDMI. and lets you view what the scope is seeing. You're actually going to see this later in the video because that's how we're going to go through all the scope options and menu settings. Next up, it comes with Allen keys. It comes with 3 different ones that you need to attach the scope to a rifle and attach all the accessories to the scope or make any other adjustments to it. Then here is an external battery charger. This battery charger is to charge the battery inside of the IR illuminator here. And then we have a manual. This tells you everything you need to know about the optic and all of the buttons, functionalities, and what they do inside the different menus and what they mean. Because if you look down here, there's actually 4 different screens of menu items in this optic. Also in that baggie is a page about the IR illuminator and a microfiber cloth. Now I'll show you the optics options that are installed on the optic here. It comes with a sunshade. You use this when you're using it during the day, and then you're supposed to take it off for the night mode. Here's the laser rangefinder. This model came with the laser rangefinder. They have a model that doesn't have the laser rangefinder, but to use the ballistics calculator in this optic, I suggest getting the one that has the LRF unit. Here is the IR illuminator. This comes in the box as well. It has an 18650 battery inside of it, and it has an adjustable bezel. You can change the beam size by rotating this. It goes from tight to wide. And then back here is a push button. This push button is pretty neat because you press it to turn it on, and then you can give it these half presses to cycle through the 3 different brightness modes that this optics IR illuminator has. And then, as I said, it had the eyepiece, but we have that installed on the optic. Let's talk about some of the buttons that this optic has. So I also forgot to mention that this optic comes with rings right here. And everything you need to mount this optic to your rifle is included in the box when you get it. Up front here, we have our focal ring for focusing the image, and back here is the ring for focusing the crosshair. Then on the side, right here, this is the power button. You press it and hold it to turn it on. It takes about 6 to 7 seconds to boot up. Then we have some buttons on top here and a knob. This knob has multiple functions. If you're just looking through the optic and you click that knob, assuming you have the laser rangefinder module on here, it's going to activate that unit and start taking range measurements. If you press and hold this knob down, you're going to enter the menu. And as I said earlier, there's 4 pages of different menu items. So you twist this knob to scroll through all the different options. If you want to adjust an option, you click the knob and that'll enter into the menu item, and you can make your adjustments or turn the option on or off or whatever you need to do to that option. And then you click that again to confirm, and then you press and hold this button and it will exit out of the menu. Now, one of the things I've noticed is if you are using this optic and you're zoomed in and you enter the menu, when you exit the menu, it will zoom you back out to 1.0. Now back here, there are 3 different buttons. The one on the left changes the image mode from color day mode to starry mode to nighttime mode. Starry has kind of like a pink hue to it, and nighttime mode is black and white. There's a button in the center here that has a camera and a film camera on it. If you double click it, you'll start recording with the onboard video capabilities. If you press and hold, you'll take a photo with the optic. On this side, there is a little button with a light bulb and a film reel on it. If you click that button, you'll adjust the brightness of the internal LCD screen. If you press and hold that button, you'll be able to review any of the footage that you've taken with this optic using the viewfinder inside the optic. Now we have the laser rangefinder, the battery compartment for the scope, and on this side, we have some ports. Now there's usually a cover on here. I've already taken it off so I could show you these ports. The USB-C port is under here. The micro HDMI output is under here. And then under this little rubber cover right here is where your micro SD card goes. And it comes with a 64 gigabyte micro SD card. So that goes over all the features on the outside of the optic. So here we have our first page of menu items. First off is reticle type. There are 7 different reticles that you can change and scroll through and select. They won't show up until you go back out of the menu though. Then we have shot 0. This features a 1-shot 0 system. When you enter that, it's going to give you a crosshair in the center and then some information at the bottom. So it says move red reticle to bullet hole while keeping white reticle on your point of aim. Then press the camera button to save the interface. So to save your 0. Now if I adjust this, you can see the crosshair moving to the right. If you want to move it up and down, you click the menu button and you can adjust the crosshairs vertical. I'm going to move it back to the center and we will be zeroing this with actual shooting after this. And then you press the camera button and you can save it to one of 6 different profiles here. So I'm going to just save it here to number 1 and then exit out of it. This position right here, well, I forgot reticle color. You've got white, red, green, blue, and black. This is the position of your crosshairs on the first ballistics profile. You can see they all say 640 by 480 because we have not zeroed this on this firearm. Now this ballistics parameters, this is where you get into the ballistics calculator that this optic has, and then you can put in all of the information of your coefficient, the ballistics model, weight, velocity, 0 range, sight height, etc., even up to altitude and everything there. So if you want to go in and put all your ballistics info to use the calculator, you can do it right there. You can switch between first focal plane and second focal plane, where the crosshairs either grow or shrink with the magnification or stay the same size. Range marker align allows you to change where the yardage is displayed on the view screen of the optic. Then there's an ISO sensitivity. I just leave that on auto. You have it in your units of measurements, either yards or meters. The screen aspect ratio of the internal viewfinder, 4.3 or 16.9 or 16:9, and then small. And here is page 2. Our movie mode is 4K 30. You can go to 4K 120, the 2K 30, the 1080p by 30 FPS. The photo resolution, you can change the resolution of the photo. Then your movie clip time, you can adjust that all the way up to 10 minutes. Auto record, if you turn it on, the next time you boot the optic up, it will automatically start recording video. Then sound record, records sound with the onboard mic when you're recording video with the optic. Then you can change your exposure. You can meter from a single point or multiple points when it's judging the light that's entering the optic. Now brightness, contrast, and saturation. I have them set to 50. You can adjust them, but if you leave it at 50, which is the default setting, the scope will automatically change those settings according to the amount of light it observes. Here's our magnification adjust. You can either zoom in by 1.0 increments or 0.2 increments. Red dot, this applies if you have the laser rangefinder on here. It turns on a visible laser beam coming out of the rangefinder unit. Button backlight will light up the buttons on top of the optic, and you can turn that on or off if you don't want that on. The LCD brightness, this is also controlled by one of the buttons on top of this optic. In fact, a couple of these are. This just adjusts the brightness of the internal LCD screen. Picture in picture, you can turn that on with the button on top of the optic or with this menu item. You can see, here's our picture in picture up top here, where it is zoomed in. If I move it around, you'll see it's just showing me what the center of the crosshair is looking at in a much more magnified image. Then here's the day, starry, and night mode. That's controlled by a button on top of the optic. Display icon, that'll remove the compass, the inclinometer, the gyro. It'll take that off the screen as well, and you'll just be left with the zoom amount displayed on the screen as well as the crosshair. And I apologize, it is getting a little windy out here. Then display widgets. Those were the things that showed up at the bottom of the screen. You can turn them on or off so they stay on. And then there's compass calibration and gyro calibration. You have to do both of those with the optic off of the rifle because you have to turn it around, you have to spin around to calibrate it, and you have to move the scope around to calibrate the gyro. Here is where you set the stamp for your recorded files. You can set it with the date and the logo, the date, just the logo, or off. And here we have our date format. We have year, year, month, month, day, day, month, month, day, day, year, year, and day, day, month, month, year, year. Then is the clock setting. You can adjust the internal clock. Then you can format the SD card. Now here, it'll give you some info about your memory card. So here's our software version. One of the things you want to do when you first get your optic is check this software version. We had an older version of the software on this optic before. I went ahead and I updated the software to the newest version, which is this 004 right here. And one of the things that fixes that I had experienced on this optic was the scope not saving your sight-in values when you turn the optic off and turned it back on. But now the software update fixes that. We have used 5.8 gigabytes of the 58.2, well, it's listed as a 64 gigabyte memory card, and then it has 52.4 gigabytes free, and it represents it there with that little pie chart there. And then you can reset the setup. And that is all of the menu items. And if you don't want to scroll through all 4 pages, you can actually scroll backwards. So if you had to go from 1 to 3, you could go backwards. And if you had to go from 1 to 2, well, you can just scroll through all the options there. And once again, to exit the menu, press and hold the menu button. All right, we're going to use our one-shot zero here. So you get your crosshairs on the target and you take your shot. All right, so it's up there with the one shot that we took earlier. We're just confirming some things here. Now go into the menu, go to shot zero, and you'll get these double crosshairs here. The red one's going to move and the white one's going to stay stationary. So you try to keep the white one on the center of your target and then move the red one to your bullet hole. To switch between windage and elevation, you just click the menu knob. So once we get up here to our little group right there. All right, so we should be pretty good now. We're going to go ahead and save the zero information by clicking the camera button, and we're going to save it to profile number 1 here. It's going to zoom us back out. We can exit the menu. We'll zoom back in here. And let's take another shot and see if we're on the bullseye. Right there, dead center, one-shot zero system that the NV400 has. All right, let's go ahead and take a couple more shots here. All right, we are looking at this old baler that's sitting up on the hill here. We're going to try out the ballistics calculator in the scope. First, we're going to turn on the laser rangefinder, and we're going to get our yardage. Looks like about 69 yards to the target. We're going to turn off the laser rangefinder to lock in that distance, and let's zoom in a little bit here. All right, we'll get set up and we'll just try to put some more shots on that triangle there. On the split screen here, we can see on the left an example of the ballistics calculator compensated drop reticle there. Unfortunately, on the video on the right that was taken with the optic itself, that crosshair does not show up in that video footage. But I am using that drop crosshair to make these hits on the footage on the right here. Okay, we are out here after dark, and we are looking at this target with the starry mode, no IR illuminator. It is currently a moonless night. However, this target is illuminated with some ambient light. Let's go ahead and turn on the IR illuminator. This is on its lowest setting, and you can narrow the beam or widen it. This is the second level of power on the IR illuminator. And this is the third level of power on the IR illuminator. And back to the first level. Now we are in the night mode with the IR illuminator on low, medium, off, high, and the IR illuminator back off. As we can see, the ambient light is helping the scope see these targets a little bit, but they become much clearer with the IR illuminator on, and especially with the power turned up. So we are looking out over a field, no moonlight, no supplemental IR right now. You can see we really can't see anything, and there's no ambient light either. Let's go ahead and turn on the IR unit. So I have the beam as narrow as it will go, adjusted with the bezel of the IR light, and this is the lowest the IR illuminator has. This is the medium setting, and this is full power with the IR illuminator. You'll see that the more we widen that beam, the less we can see at distance there. So let's keep this beam nice and tight, see what we can find. Oh, we have an animal up here. And it is a cow. You can easily tell what kind of animal it is. We are on 6x magnification, which seems to bring the image into the same size as that tight IR light beam. So it means that about 5 or 6x, here's 5x, 6x, one of those two is going to be the best spot on the magnification level when you're using the IR illuminator, as tight as it goes. Now there is something right there, and I can't quite tell what it is. It looks like it could be a possum. Yeah, I think that's Mr. Possum right out there. Here's a skunk that I found out in the field. Thank you everybody for joining me out here on the range as we took a look at the Commander NV400 Eagle. Where's that noise again? 2 to 26 by 50 digital optic. So just to give you a little bit of a rundown, I like the fact that this scope has everything you need in the box. For around 500 bucks, you get the optic with the rangefinder, you get the IR illuminator to use this scope after dark. And you saw some footage that we captured with this optic after dark in this video. You also saw some daytime footage on how to use the one-shot zero system that this optic offers. And you also saw us play around with the ballistics calculator and the laser rangefinder that this optic has. Now, a couple things on this optic I'd like to see improved on. I'd like to see a bit larger LCD screen that you're looking at, because to me it felt a little bit on the small side. I'd also like to see a bit lighter weight optic, because that's one of the things you notice when you first pick this optic up is the weight of the optic. It is a beefy optic. But otherwise, I kind of like this setup. It was interesting to use. It shows you how digital scopes are coming along pretty well now. And if you'd like to check out everything that OneLeaf has, you can go to their website at www.oneleaf.ai. So thank you for joining me for this video tonight. This has been another WV Guns and Goats video. Remember everybody, if you're not out there having fun shooting, what are you doing?